Hi, it's Katrina. You already know about Machu Picchu and the pyramids of Giza, but today I'm going to be showing you some ancient places that are so far off the map that you've likely never heard of them. From America's Pompeii to the forgotten pyramids of the desert, let's go. It turns out the mythological beast that was half man and half bull may not have ever been in the labyrinth at all, but instead in an old quarry full of rocks. The Minotaur Labyrinth. An ancient quarry on the Greek island of Crete may have once been home to a monstrous minotaur. At the very least, the quarry may have been the site of a legendary labyrinth that gave rise to the myth of the Minotaur. A team of experts have been investigating the quarry in recent years, which is located outside the small Cretan town of Gortyn. They believe that some recent discoveries could change history. But to explain why, I need to do a bit of jumping around. First, let me tell you about the Minotaur. In Greek mythology, King Minos wasn't a very good ruler. He had in his possession a beautiful white bull that he was supposed to sacrifice to Poseidon. But he decided to keep the bull because he was greedy. And as punishment for his greed, Poseidon had his wife become enamored with the animal. She then procreated with it, giving birth to a half-man, half-bull abomination. King Minos built a maze to contain the Minotaur, sacrificing young men and maidens to the beast in order to keep it alive. This went on until the hero Theseus came and cut off its head. These days, every single year, nearly 1 million tourists pass through Crete's Palace of Knossos. Tourists are told on location that the palace was where King Minos ruled roughly 2,500 years ago. They are also told that underneath the palace are the ruins of the labyrinth that once held the Minotaur. This might not be true, though. It's challenging to say. The palace is indeed real, and it could have been the legendary seat of King Minos. But now, archaeological studies at the Gortyn Quarry have revealed a real labyrinth hidden underneath the ground. They identified a massive complex of almost 3 miles of interlocking corridors and tunnels. 3 miles is huge. Just like the legend, this could have been a real labyrinth that was so perplexing people starved to death inside of it. But this discovery brings up another question. If the labyrinth was real, was the Minotaur real as well? And now for number 7, but first I want to give a big shout out to Michelle Birch and Do Krusty. Thanks so much for watching and supporting Origins Explained. Hope you all are having a wonderful day. If you are new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button and join the family. Ozette. America has its very own Pompeii, an ancient site belonging to a culture that's been around for 4,000 years, but it has since been buried by a natural disaster. For hundreds of years, since long before Europeans reached North America, the indigenous Makah have populated the Pacific Northwest. In Washington state, the tribe has thrived for centuries. In 1970, a violent storm on the Pacific coast revealed the ruins of one of their ancient settlements. The Makah village was buried under a mudslide 300 years earlier, though its origins date back 2,000 years. Out of all the indigenous groups in North America, few have been as well documented as the Makah. And it was all because of the single storm in 1970. It revealed the abandoned village of Ozette, which is located about 15 miles from Cape Flattery. Around the year 1700, there was a seismic event that triggered an epic mudslide. The mudslide buried the village, creating what's been dubbed the Western Pompeii. But amazingly, the village was perfectly preserved underneath the landslide debris. Archaeologists were able to excavate thousands of perfectly preserved artifacts that would have otherwise rotted. They found woven cedar baskets, blankets made from dog hair, and much more. This was an exceptional find because normally, these types of artifacts decay within a few short years. Anything made from organic material is quick to rot, but thanks to the mudslide, archaeologists unearthed roughly 55,000 artifacts between 1970 and 1981. Most of the artifacts were from the 1700s, but there was evidence of activity going back way further. The oldest items discovered are 2,000 years old, but there are ruins in the area that are 4,000 years old. It really makes you wonder how many other Native American sites are unknown to the world, buried throughout the Pacific Northwest. Have you ever been to this area? Let me know in the comments below. The city of Hippos. The ancient city of Hippos is nestled in the foothills of Israel. Although it's not technically in Europe, It was founded as a Greco-Roman town. The name of the ancient city is also a little confusing. It's called Hippos, which immediately makes me think of a hippopotamus. But the name Hippos means horse in English. The history of this crumbling ruin is epic, to say the least. And the ruin itself is pretty epic too. It's a sprawling city of crumbling stone overlooking a vast expanse of sea and rolling mountains. It stands upon an outcrop like a city on a mountain, totally isolated in a barren landscape. Let's get down to the history. The city was established in the 3rd century BC by the Seleucid Empire. The Seleucid Empire was founded by Nicator, one of the generals who snatched a slice of Alexander the Great's massive empire upon his death. Nicator established the Seleucid Empire to oversee territories in Asia. And soon, this small colony at Hippos developed into a regional powerhouse. It had fortified walls, public buildings, a market, and temples. But with the rise of the Roman Republic, the Seleucid Empire declined. In 135 AD, Hippos belonged to the Roman Empire, and it was located inside their province of Syria. The city grew in wealth as the Romans prospered, but the true greatness of the city is hidden underneath its hundreds and thousands of tons of rubble. In 749 AD, an immense earthquake shook Israel, and as a result, Hippos was completely destroyed, and everybody in it left, never to return. The Bowen Stone House ruins. There is a small roofless ruin in Tucson, Arizona that has no real equivalent anywhere else in the world. It isn't ancient, but it is old. The Bowen Stone House is a testament to the challenges faced by people in the region 100 years ago. The ruined stone walls of this place are eerily beautiful, yet full of mystery. Anybody with 2 feet and a bit of determination can visit the ruins of the Bowen Stone House, which is also called the Bowen Homestead. It stands along a hiking trail in the Tucson Mountains, constructed in the remote peacefulness of the Arizona countryside in the early 1930s. It was built recently enough that I can tell you the names of the builders. Jerry and Ruby Bowen were the geniuses behind the humble stone abode. The couple built the homestead and expanded their land to encompass 2,000 acres. They lived through storm, heat, and desert wind. But what exactly did they do out there in the rustic landscape? Sherry and Ruby would have lived a life that people today can only fantasize about. They looked through the windows of their stone home and watched deer and sheep graze quietly in the valley. They sat in the balmy desert sun and looked upon the cacti and gorgeous wild horses. It was, even in the 1930s, a romantic life to live. That is, according to some people. For me, it's not quite my cup of tea. In 1983, the ruins of the homestead were incorporated into the Tucson Mountain Park. While it might seem to people today like a good life out in the middle of nowhere, that wasn't necessarily the case. The family lived a rugged existence during the days of the Great Depression and throughout World War II. Their hardships are lost now, but the ruins of their home will remain for future generations to see. The mountain that eats men. In the southern highlands of Bolivia is a mountain that eats men. The peak of Cerro Rico stands 15,800 feet above sea level. It's a place of horror and unspeakable tragedy. When I tell you that the mountain eats men, it's true. But it isn't the mountain's fault. Misfortune and murder have been happening here since the earliest days of the Spanish conquest. These days, Bolivia's Cerro Rico is largely overrun with mining equipment. The mountain is basically a giant block of Swiss cheese, riddled with holes and on the verge of collapse. In fact, mining experts have warned that the entire mountain is in danger of imploding because it has become so porous and unstable. The mines are run by the descendants of indigenous slaves who were forced to work in grueling conditions by their Spanish overlords. The Spanish wanted silver from the mountain to bankroll the expansion of their empire. In colonial times, Cerro Rico was home to an imperial city, a place that was so rich that it had prosperous churches and glorious mansions. The Spanish chronicles say that the city became as big and rich as Madrid across the ocean in Spain. However, those days are long gone. Some of the mansions are still standing and the churches are still around, but the glory faded long ago. The mountain is an interesting look into the lingering consequences of history. Around 3 million Quechua Indians were put to work in the mines by the Spanish. Hundreds of thousands died from hunger, disease, and mining accidents. Then, fast forward several centuries, and there are still 16,000 miners toiling in almost identical conditions as their ancestors. Of course, much of the wealth is gone, and the mountain is on the verge of destruction. According to a 3-year study from engineer Nestor Rene Espinosa, there are 600 mines, which are mostly abandoned, and over 60 miles of shafts threatening total collapse. Balancanche, not far from the ancient Maya city of Chichen Itza, is a dark and mysterious underground place of true terror. It's called Balancanche, a subterranean realm of passages, gods, and archaeological secrets. The sacred cave of Balancanche was discovered in 1905, deep in the overgrown jungle. But it wasn't until 1959 that archaeologists took an interest in its unlit corridors and deepest corners. They began investigating the cave, and soon enough they uncovered a series of chambers dedicated to various Maya gods. The caves as a whole make up an underground ritual complex. Balancanche was a sanctuary dedicated primarily to Chak, the Maya rain god. He was the most important god in the Maya pantheon since he was the one who brought the water that fed the crops, thereby keeping the Maya people alive. The caves and chambers extend for roughly 1.2 miles. It's a vast network that you can easily get lost in. Visitors are allowed inside the creepy caverns, but I hope you're not claustrophobic. You have to descend 32 feet to witness the underground wonders. And as you explore its depths, you'll see a whole host of Mayan mysteries. There are vessels and offerings on display that were uncovered inside the caves, including jade shaped in the form of a jaguar, pieces of jewelry, and Balaam's throne, where offerings were made to the great god. And of course, plenty of stalagmites and stalactites shaped like rocky spears are waiting to impale you at Balancanche. Who wants to go? The Pyramids of Libya. The pyramids of Egypt are so talked about it's almost crazy, especially when there are so many other pyramids in the world. To the west of the Egyptian border is Libya, an African nation that's not known for its archaeology or heritage. Yet south of Tripoli are fabulous pyramids that were built by the ancient Garamantian civilization 3,000 years ago. There's a lot going on over here. These are some of the greatest pyramids in the world, and not many people know they exist. They extend all the way through the desert and to the coast of the Mediterranean Sea. It was in the 1950s that the pyramids were first found buried beneath the shifting sands. There are mountains in the region with dark caves upon which prehistoric painters engraved scenes of their lives. People were practicing agriculture and animal husbandry here thousands of years ago. The Garamantian civilization was an expert in trade, astronomy, and even mummification. Around 1000 BC, the Garamantes were some of the most powerful people in Africa. British archaeologist David Mattingly said that they threatened cities across the Mediterranean coastline and the kingdoms in Chad and Niger. Out of all the pyramids in Libya, the Hatia pyramids are the most famous. They were built as tombs for dead rulers and other important people, and they were used in the same way the Egyptians used their pyramids. But there were a lot of different kinds of gravestones used by the Garamantes. Sometimes they would build giant stone horns or a humongous obelisk, and other times they would build a huge triangle. The Hatia pyramids are nearly as large as the Egyptian pyramids, but they were once numerous. When somebody died, they would be wrapped in a shroud and placed gently inside a small burial room at the pyramid's base. Then the pyramid was sealed using huge stone blocks, preventing humans and animals from getting at the body. Only about 20 pyramids are still standing in the Hatia burial ground. Some are in good condition, but others have been totally obliterated. Researchers believe that there is so much more to find hidden in the desert. 3,000 years of history and a civilization that rivaled Egypt were lost to the Libyan wasteland. Mullumbimby. You've heard of Stonehenge, and you've heard of a few other megalithic stone monuments in Europe, probably. There are plenty of them throughout France, Spain, England, and even Germany. But did you know that Australia has its own Stonehenge? Many people have never heard of the Mullumbimby Stone Circle before, and for good reason. Archaeologists discovered the epic stone circle in New South Wales in the years before World War II. It was studied by the Australian journalist Frederick Slater during his time with the Brunswick Valley Historical Society, but nobody's talked about his research since 1940. That was when an angry farmer ordered the ancient stone monument to be destroyed. Records show that the farmer feared he would lose his livelihood if people kept going to look at the stones. So he ordered his 15-year-old son to destroy what may have been the oldest sacred site in the world. But recently, for the first time in over 70 years, a team launched an investigation into the Mullumbimby Stone Circle. Stephen and Evan Strong used research notes taken by Frederick before 1940 to locate the site. And now the duo are suggesting that the stone arrangement was potentially the first and oldest temple in the world. It also may have been the source for all human language. It's been a long time since the stones were destroyed. Stephen and Evan confirmed the original site by finding fragments of the 185 original stones. They are scattered throughout the grass like shards from a great meteorite, and upon the stones are strange carved symbols. Stephen and Evan, who happen to be father and son, believe these symbols represent the earliest language ever spoken. They say that before 1950, Frederick Slater had been working on a dictionary to make sense of the thousands of words allegedly etched onto the stones. But what's really crazy is that modern archaeologists have completely ignored the Australian Stonehenge. Nobody has officially gone to date the place, so it's unclear how old it really is. It could be one of the most important sites in human history, but it's being ignored. And it's not even as if the fractured stone circle is in a hard-to-reach place. It's just on a farm in Australia, not in the middle of the Sahara. Thanks for watching! Which of these strange places surprised you the most? Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Bye!